What happens when you fear for a child's well-being at home? So you do everything right and report your concerns to the correct authorities, but nothing is done and the worst still prevails. How about this occurs during a national lockdown and the government is instructing its citizens to stay safe, stay home, limiting the authorities' power to intervene? I'm going to tell you the stories of 5 children, 3 of whom fell victim to an overworked, underfunded system, and 2 whose lives were also subjected to the strained pressures of the same system, but with a global crisis also being implicated as a factor in their demise. For these children, staying home wasn't safe at all. As I am covering 5 different cases in one video, I won't be able to go through the entire background of every single child and every single detail within the cases, so I will be recommending the following videos if you want to know more detail on them. For the cases of Victoria Climbié and Baby P, I recommend Eleanor Neal, and for the case of Ellie Butler, I recommend Molly Westbrook. These 2 creators are very thorough and do a lot of research into their videos, and so in the future, if they decide to cover the 2 cases that are fairly new, I will also link the videos for them in the description. I am focusing on the failure of the authorities and therefore be giving a general background and key points wherein authorities were given direct contact with the child or the child's family. I won't be going into any of what actually happened to the children or any of the trials and the aftermath. I just want to focus on the failings of the system. First, we go back to 1991. Victoria Climbié is born November 4th in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. Victoria was the 5th of 7 children. During a family funeral in 1991, her visiting great-aunt, Marie-Therese, offered to take one of the Climbié children back to Paris with her in order for them to gain a better education. Marie had a passport ready under the name Anna as she intended to take another girl, but Anna's parents declined the offer. Victoria's parents were poor and couldn't afford to send all of their children to school, and so happily accepted Marie's suggestion. Victoria would go on to use the existing passport, now assuming the name on it, Anna. Possibly in November 1998, Victoria was enrolled in a Parisian school. However, by December, Marie had already been issued warnings regarding Victoria's absenteeism. In February 1999, the school supplied a child at risk notification and a social worker was enlisted due to Victoria's falling asleep in class, and she appeared to suffer from a presumably untreated dermatological condition. In March, the head teacher noted how Victoria's head had been shaved and she was wearing a wig. The 24th of April 1999, Marie moved herself and Victoria to Eating, West London, staying at a bed and breakfast in Tyford Crescent, Acton. Upon leaving France, Marie owed French authorities £2,000 after being wrongly paid child benefit and had been evicted from her French home due to unpaid rent. On the 25th of April, a distant relative of Marie by marriage, Esther Acker, a midwife, counsellor and preacher, were visited by the pair. Esther and her own daughter observed that Victoria was wearing a wig and appeared small and frail. On the 25th, Marie took Victoria to the homeless persons unit of Eating Council and was seen by Julie Winters, completing a housing application form. Marie told Julie Victoria wore a wig due to her short hair, an excuse which was accepted. Between the 26th of April and early July, Marie visited Eating Social Services 18 times, accompanied by Victoria on at least 10 occasions. Staff took note of Victoria's untidy and unkept appearance, however no action was taken as they believed it was an attempt to gain more money by Marie. May 1st, they moved to Nickel Road, Harleston, in the London Borough of Brent, and the 8th of June, Marie secured a job at Northwick Park Hospital. During her first month, there was no attempt by Marie or Eating Social Services to enroll Victoria into education or daycare. Also on June 8th, Marie took her to a GP, but the nurse did not perform a physical examination as no healthcare needs were reported. 18th of June, Esther anonymously called Brent Social Services after noticing a scar on Victoria's cheek and visiting their home which she believed to be unsuitable conditions. She chased up her report on the 21st and was told it had probably been dealt with. On the 14th of June, Marie met Carl Manning and struck up a relationship. moving into Carl's one-bedroom flat in Somerset Gardens, Tottenham, on the 6th of July. On the 7th of July, Brent's social services sent a letter to their previous address, notifying them for a home visit. Social workers Laurie Hobson and Monica Bridgman attended the home visit on the 14th, but Marie and Victoria had already moved. They made no effort to investigate further. On the 13th of July, Mary dropped Victoria off at Priscilla Cameron's, a childminder, asking her to take her because Carl did not want her. Priscilla only agreed to take Victoria overnight. Her son Patrick and daughter Avril saw Victoria had numerous injuries, a burn on her face and loose skin hanging off of her right eyelid. The next day, Avril took Victoria to see Marie Cader, a French teacher at her son's school, so she could ascertain exactly what Victoria would say. Marie Cader advised that Victoria should be taken to hospital, and so Avril took her to the Accident and Emergency Department of Central Middlesex Hospital. Dr. Rhys Bayon, a senior house officer in the department, examined Victoria and determined that there was a strong possibility that the injuries were non-accidental. Victoria was then referred to Dr. Ekundeo Ejeobi, the on-call paediatric registrar. When asked about the injuries, Victoria said they were self-inflicted, a claim the paediatrician did not believe was credible. The paediatrician was strongly suspicious that the injuries were non-accidental, so she decided to admit Victoria into the ward. Brent Police and Social Services were alerted by doctors, and she was placed under police protection, a 72-hour protection order preventing her from leaving the hospital. Mary told the doctors that she had scabies and that the injuries were self-inflicted. Many doctors and nurses did not believe this. Astonishingly enough, Ruby Schwartz, a consultant paediatrician and named child protection doctor at the hospital, diagnosed scabies and decided it was scratching that caused the injuries, making the diagnosis without speaking to Victoria by herself. One of Schwartz's juniors misleadingly wrote to social services, stating that there was no child protection issue. When Michelle Hine, a child protection officer at Brent Council, received a report notifying her of Victoria's injuries, she planned to open an investigation into the case. However, the next day she heard of Schwartz's diagnosis and downgraded Victoria's level of care. Marie took Victoria home on the 15th of July. On the 24th of July, Victoria was taken by Marie to the A&E with severe scalding to her head and other injuries. The hospital found no evidence of scabies. Consultant Mary Rotisserie felt Victoria was being mistreated, but still wrote able to discharge on her notes. According to Maureen Ann Meets, another doctor at the hospital, when Mary had written that note, she had noted that Victoria was exhibiting signs of neglect, emotional mistreatment, and physical mistreatment. For a short amount of time while Victoria was in hospital, Enfield Social Services took up the case, before passing it on to Haringey. A social worker and police officer from Haringey Council, Lisa Arthurworry and Karen Jones, were assigned to her case and were scheduled to make a home visit on the 4th of August. However, the visit was cancelled once they heard about the scabies. On the 5th of August, a Haringey social officer, Barry Almeida, took Victoria to an NSPCC centre in Tottenham, where she was assigned to Sylvia Henry. Marie met Lisa and Karen at the Haringey Social Services Department and told them that Victoria poured boiling water over herself to stop the itching caused by the scabies and that she had used utensils to cause other injuries. The social worker and police officer believed her. Lisa made a visit to Victoria's home on the 16th of April and another one when Carl began forcing Victoria to sleep in the bathtub. Lisa said in the inquiry that she was under the impression that Victoria seemed happy. Lisa and Victoria met on 4 occasions where they were together for less than 30 minutes, barely speaking to each other. Marie then kept Victoria away from hospitals, turning instead to churches. Marie said to the pastors that she was the mother and that demons were inside Victoria. The pastor at the Mission Ensemble pour Christ, Pascal Arome, offered prayers for Victoria to cast out the devil and thought that her injuries were due to demonic possession. At Haringey Social Services on the 1st of November, Marie told social workers that Carl had adult contact with Victoria, but withdrew the accusation the following day. On the 25th of February 2000, Victoria's case was closed, the same day that she died. 24th of April 2000. Victoria was taken unconscious and suffering from hypothermia, multiple organ failure, and malnutrition to the local University Church of the Kingdom of God. The pastor advised hospitalisation and a minicab was called to send her to hospital. The cab driver was horrified at Victoria's condition and rushed her to the nearby Tottenham ambulance station instead. She was taken to the Accident and Emergency Department of the North Middlesex Hospital and then transferred to the intensive care unit at St Mary's Hospital. Victoria died on the 25th of February 2000 at 3:15 p.m. The pathologist who examined her body noted 128 separate injuries and scars on her body. She had been bound, burned, starved, and beaten. Victoria was already known to 4 local authorities, 4 social services departments and 3 housing departments, 2 child protection police teams, 2 hospitals and an NSPCC centre and a few local churches. She was buried in Grand Bassam, near her hometown. Marie was arrested on the day that she died and Carl the following day. Peter Connolly, legally known as Baby P during the case, was born to Tracy Connolly on the 1st of March 2006 in London, the UK. He was the youngest of 4, having 3 older sisters. Only 3 months after his birth, his mother and unnamed father separated. Tracy moved out with the children, but Peter's father remained involved in his children's lives. He was concerned with the untidy and unhygienic living conditions and alerted social services, who then worked alongside a cooperative Tracy until they deemed her a functioning mother. In November, Tracy's new boyfriend, Stephen Barker, moved into her home. A GP noticed bruises on Peter's face and chest in December. Tracy was subsequently arrested for questioning. Peter was placed on the at-risk of mistreatment register and into the care of a family friend. Social services wanted to enter Peter into foster care, but lost the court case, and he was returned to Tracy in January 2007. Over the next few months, Peter was admitted to hospital twice with injuries such as bruising, scratches, and on the second visit, swelling on the side of his head. Tracy was rearrested in May 2007, but not charged. In June 2007, a social worker observed marks on Peter and reported the matter to police. A medical examination determined that the bruises were due to child mistreatment. Peter is again placed in the care of a family friend on the 4th of June, but only remained for a couple of weeks as the official cause was changed to accidental. Peter was seen at St Anne's Hospital in North London by locum paediatrician Sabah Al-Zayat on August 1st, but serious injuries including a broken back and broken ribs likely went undetected as they probably predated this examination, meaning the ribs were already starting to heal. The 2nd of August. An ambulance is called to the Connolly home. Peter was found in his cot, skin blue, only wearing a nappy. Attempts of resuscitation did not work and Peter was rushed to North Middlesex Hospital alongside Tracy, but was pronounced dead at 12:20 p.m. The post-mortem revealed he had swallowed a tooth after being punched around the jaw area. Other injuries included a broken back, broken ribs, mutilated fingertips and missing fingernails. Peter was buried at Islington and St Pancras Cemetery in Greater London. He had been under the same child welfare authorities that failed Victoria Climbié 7 years earlier. Ellie Butler was born December 30th, 2006 to Jenny Gray and Ben Butler in Sutton, South London. Ellie would be the first of 2 children, later having an unidentified younger sibling. However, on February 7th, 2007, just a week after her birth, Jenny took Ellie to hospital for burns on her forehead and fingers, sustained whilst in Ben's care, who claimed she had rolled from her baby mat to facing the radiator. The doctor, believing Ben to be merely a new, unexperienced father, did not report the matter to social services. Just 8 days later, on February 15th, Ellie was yet again taken to hospital, this time by her father Ben, who claimed she just went floppy. It was discovered that she had head and retinal injuries, including bleeding on the brain, injuries consistent with baby shaking. Both parents were arrested March 6th, and Ellie was placed into the care of her maternal grandparents, Neil and Linda Gray. both later receiving special guardianship of her in August 2008. Ben was found guilty of the GBH of Ellie at Croydon Crown Court and sentenced to 18 months, but was bailed out after just 3 months to fight his appeal. During this time, Jenny gave birth to their second child, but when social services became aware, they took the child away into care. Against all the evidence, Ben's conviction is overturned on the 17th of June 2010 by Mr. Justice Moses at the Court of Appeal. In 2012, Jenny and Ben begin a media campaign to regain custody of their children. Despite Ellie's grandparents' warnings, Mrs. Justice Hogg revoked their special guardianship and decided they should be handed back to their parents. Neil directly told the judge, "I hope you have a conscience, because one day you might find that you have blood on your hands." November 9th, 2012, Ellie goes back to live with her parents and learns about her sibling for the first time. Ben takes Ellie to a doctor on June 25th, 2013, claiming she bumped her head falling down the stairs, after calling his lawyer for advice. Around October 1st, Ellie's shoulder bone is broken, but she is not taken to a doctor. She is absent from school until the 14th. October 10th/11th, Ben claims Ellie fell down the stairs and passed out, a story Ellie repeats to her teachers upon her return to school. October 28th, 2013, an ambulance is called to the family home, where Ellie is found dead. Postmortem reveals fractures on her skull caused by blunt force trauma. July 2014, her body is released to her grandfather for a funeral, her grandmother dying of cancer earlier on. She is later cremated. These 3 cases display just a snapshot of a greater systemic issue with social care and services. Just 3 out of hundreds of failed children neglected and mistreated by not only their own caregivers, but by the authorities that are put in place with the purpose of protecting them. Government cuts to social care and a lack of communication between professionals such as teachers and doctors are what compounded into a scenario that allowed these vulnerable children to fall through the cracks. As of March 2020, restrictions due to a national lockdown made it even harder for this struggling system. Between April 1st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021, over 200 child deaths due to probable neglect and mistreatment occurred. What follows are the stories of just 2 of them. Arthur Labingo-Hughes was born to Olivia Yabinho-Holcrow and Thomas Hughes January 4th, 2014. The pair separated 2 years later and Arthur lived with his mother, but both Olivia and Thomas shared custody until 2019. Olivia was convicted with manslaughter after fatally attacking her then-new partner, who mistreated her, in a substance and alcohol-induced rage. Thomas was made Arthur's sole carer and moved into an annex behind his parents, Arthur's paternal grandparents' home. His paternal grandparents are Joanne, although some family members say Joanna, but I say Joanne in this video, and Chris Hughes. In August 2019, Thomas met Emma Tustin, mother of 4, on a dating site. Her eldest 2 lived with their respective fathers. Thomas's brother, Arthur's uncle, Daniel Hughes, noticed around this time Thomas became a lot stricter with him, and Arthur appeared fearful of his father. November 2019, Thomas and Joanne visited staff at Arthur's school to talk about growing concerns regarding his behaviour, including comments Arthur made about fears that Thomas may fatally harm him. In March 2020, Thomas took Arthur to see children and adolescent mental health services practitioner Kerry Forsyth Benson. She noted his physical appearance was fine and his aggression and anxiety was reduced, determining that there were no mental health issues. Also in March 2020, Thomas moved into Emma's summer home in Solihull with Arthur. He did have a few days stay back at his parents' after an incident between himself and an ex-boyfriend of Emma. During this period, Arthur told his grandmother Joanne that Emma had pinned him against a wall and called him a horrible, ugly brat. Joanne also discovered bruises on Arthur's back, which she documented via photos. Thomas refused his mother's offer for Arthur to stay with her, and she reported him to social services on April 16th. Also on this day, Joanne calls Madeline Holcrow, which is Arthur's maternal grandmother, Olivia's mother, and asks if her and Chris can come over. 9 p.m. they go over to Madeline's home and tell her about the bruises and show her the photos. Madeline, a nurse, confirms these are non-accidental, caused by adult hands and being pushed against something or being hit by something, and saw that there were old bruises underneath the new bruises, meaning it had been going on for a while. Joanne informs Madeline that she has in fact contacted social services, and the following day Madeline does the same. This is where I think the timeline is a little bit skewed, and I don't blame Madeline for misremembering, because number one, she's going through a lot of grief, and number two, I can't remember what I did on specific dates. Madeline says she was visited by the Holcrows on the 16th and rang on the 17th, but social services said they'd been there the day prior. But the log actually says that they went and checked on it on the 17th, which would have been the day that Madeline said that she'd called. So I think social services were contacted by Joanne on the 16th. On the 17th is when they actually went and did the check, and is the same day in which the Hughes went over to see Madeline. And on the 18th is when Madeline called social services for them to inform her that they'd been the previous day. Either way, around the 17th of April, social services went and checked up on Arthur in Emma's home, and this is what happened. Social worker Jane Kavanagh visited Emma's home, who told her that Arthur and her son had been play fighting with boxing gloves. The boys were asked how happy they were, to which they indicated they were very happy. Jane concluded there were no safeguarding concerns. And this is what they told Madeline when she rang up. They'd already been and there were no concerns. So Madeline rang the police, who said, "We've already been there as well and there are no concerns." 18th of April, Arthur's uncle Daniel spoke to West Midlands Police about the bruises, sending over the photos, but never heard back. The log was later closed, believing it required no further role for force response, as social services were involved. 20th of April, his grandmother Joanne told Arthur's school about the social services referral. The safeguarding lead at Dickens Heath Community Primary School, Michelle Hunt, contacted social services but was told they had no concerns. In May 2020, Emma's stepfather John Dutton claims he made an anonymous referral because he felt Arthur was in danger. 8th of June, Thomas didn't send his son back to school despite it reopening. He claimed Arthur hadn't slept well, and then went on to tell them he wasn't eating, was losing weight, and may faint when Arthur still failed to turn up. 15th of June, Emma brought Arthur along to a 6-hour hair appointment. The hairdresser, Catherine Milhench, said he was skeletal, legs were shaking like he couldn't hold himself up, and was forced to face the door and not move the entire time. The following day, the family returned to Catherine's home to finish the hair appointment. She stated Thomas and Emma took turns shouting at Arthur. Catherine's partner, Tobias Jarman, secretly gave a terrified Arthur a glass of water. Back at the home at 2:42 p.m, an ambulance was called for Arthur, who was unconscious. He was taken to Birmingham Children's Hospital. He had sustained an unsurvivable brain injury, 130 bruises, was severely malnourished, and had been poisoned with salt. 17th of June 2020, doctors concluded nothing could be done. His life support was switched off at 1 a.m. As of recording this video on the 20th of December, Arthur's body has not been released for burial. Star Hobson was born to Frankie Smith and Jordan Hobson May 21st, 2019 in Keighley, West Yorkshire. I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm just going to say Keighley. Sorry, Yorkshire. In September, Frankie frequently leaves Star with her friend Holly Jones babysitting so she can go out drinking. Around November, Frankie breaks up with Jordan. Shortly afterward, she strikes up a relationship with Savannah Brockhill, a bouncer at a pub called The Sun in Bradford, West Yorkshire. Holly begins to become concerned regarding Star's well-being, having suspicions about DV and worries about how often Star is left in her care, and contacts social services January 23, 2020. Both police and social care workers visit Star, but they state nothing of concern was discovered, and the case was closed March 20th. Frankie tells her grandmother, Anita Smith, and her grandmother's partner, David Fawcett, which are Star's great-grandparents, that she has ended her relationship with Savannah. This was in February. Star goes to live with David and Anita, but on April 26th, Frankie retrieves her and moves Star into the home, which she shares with Savannah. Anita reaches out to social services May 4th after somebody informs her Savannah had slam-choked Star. June 21st, Jordan, Star's father, calls social services after David posts evidence of Star's bruises on Facebook the month prior. As a result, police take Star to hospital for a medical examination. Frankie claims her bruises were due to Star bumping into a coffee table. 3 days later, the 23rd, another family friend contacts social services, but all of these cases are closed on the 8th of July. Frankie's grandfather, Star's maternal great-granddad and Anita Smith's ex, Frank Smith, contacts social services on the 2nd of September after seeing bruises on Star's face. On the 3rd, social workers make a surprise visit and note Star has a few bruises, to which Frankie says she fell down the stairs. On the 15th of September, this case is closed. The 22nd of September, 2020, 999 is called to the home for Star. She later dies in hospital. It is determined Star died of unsurvivable injuries, including a punch to the face that ultimately caused the death, an act committed by Savannah. Star's grave is located in West Yorkshire. Victoria Adjo Climbié, 2nd of November 1991 to the 25th of February 2000, 8 years old. Birth Climbié, her mother, is quoted saying, "Victoria was full of happiness. I always remember her beautiful smile." Peter Connolly, 1st of March 2006 to the 3rd of August 2007, 17 months old. Peter was described as lively, energetic, and very active. Ellie Butler, 30th of December 2006 to the 28th of October 2013, 6 years old. Her grandfather Neil remembers her as kind, clever, and polite, and that she had lots of friends. Arthur Labingo-Hughes, 4th of January 2014 to the 16th of June 2020. Arthur loved superheroes, and his grandmother Madeline says that he was gentle, caring, compassionate, and he had a wicked sense of humour. Star Hobson, 21st of May 2019 to the 22nd of September 2020, 16 months old. Her auntie says that she loved music, dancing, and chocolate. The children you've heard about today and the cases that we have discussed are just 5 of hundreds of cases around the United Kingdom. Children are still being failed, and one of the most heartbreaking things about some of these cases is that the authorities refuse to admit fault. The inquiry into Ellie Butler's death determined that the authorities were not at fault, and in the same case, Mrs. Justice Mary Hobb, or Dame Mary Hobb, as she has a knightship, apparently, is not going to apologise to Neil Gray for the decision that she made to place Ellie back with her parents. All Neil Gray wanted in Ellie's case was an admission of guilt by the authorities and an apology for that, and they just won't give it to him. He's lost throughout this his granddaughter, his wife, and his daughter, because he won't talk to her anymore. And he doesn't even get an apology from the people who facilitated what happened to Ellie. Social workers choose to do what they do because they genuinely want to help people, but the system is bureaucratic and is all about pushing papers and closing cases as fast as possible because they are so overworked they cannot cope and cannot properly look into things. The system is headed by people with egos who refuse to admit fault, who refuse to say there was something that they did that contributed harm to a child. Even when, in black and white, there were warning signs, there were reports, It was all ignored. The government has to give more funding to these institutions. They have to do it. We are taxpayers. We should be paying for things that are important to us. And I think the vast majority of UK taxpayers can say that protecting children is important to them and that they would like children to be safe, happy, and cared for. I think I can state with confidence that that's just a societal value at this point. It's a consensus. Very few people, except perhaps some select few sick people, much like the sick people we've talked about in this video, would disagree with that notion. We are spending millions and millions of pounds on things that the general public don't want or care about, and yet we cannot fix this problem. We are wasting so much money on aspects of society that people don't want or don't care about, when we could be putting it into the social care and protecting these children. Because these, again, are 5 of the children out of hundreds who have been failed. And one child is one child too many when it comes to mistreatment and neglect. Just one child being mistreated or neglected is one child too many. These numbers that we are seeing and the rise in this is so astronomically high. It's unacceptable. There's not much we can do, unfortunately, because the authorities are the ones in charge. And they won't admit fault in at least some of these cases, will they? I'm going to make this a fundraiser for the NSPCC, the children's charity, because if the government aren't going to fund the social services, then we can at very least help out the charities that support children out of, what resources they have, which is sad. There really shouldn't be a need for these charities, but apparently we have more important things to spend our money on, like railway lines that aren't even going to be finished after all that money and people being kicked out of their homes and all that environmental damage. I'll try and make the next video a happier video, even if there's nothing, topical-wise or news-wise online, then I'll try and think of an abstract concept like my Sylvanian Families video, which was upbeat. I hope so. I'll see you guys in the next video.